Harlem was always alive on summer evenings. There was always plenty to see and do on those bustling city streets. There was ball, the theater, of course the dance halls, and even the library. Harlem had it all. But for some, the real show was here on the street corners.
And if this country fail us as a people to respect the human rights of those of African origin living in this nation, then we should ask our African...
On these corners were fascinating speakers. Folks called them soapbox orators, stepladder speakers, or corner professors. They would be mounted on a stepladder, a milk crate, or a wooden box, whatever they could find to create their platform. And to anyone willing to stop and listen, they offered lessons in history, government, rights, and politics. Such speakers, were popular in the parks in London, and here in the States too, like Chicago, San Diego, even downtown New York. They were the radio before radio. They focused their attention on those who labored outdoors or at the port. But eventually they captured anyone who dared to step outside, even us ladies. But while other cities quieted down, pushed by the weight and threats of the war, Harlem found its voice. You see, here in Harlem, we had the space and the cause. Wide sidewalks, packed tenements, and people living through hard times and struggle. And it became like a tradition, going out to hear the speakers talk. We'd be packed shoulder to shoulder, so focused that no passing bus or fire engine could distract us. The speakers gave us new ways to think and new ways to see ourselves. Our street teachers talked about everything from art, the economy, and of course politics, but more than anything, they spoke about race. Yeah, right out there on those streets. They spoke of Black consciousness, racial pride. They taught us a little bit about Negro history. And they weren't speaking just to the well-to-do, or as we call them in Harlem, the strivers. No, they were speaking to us, the regular folk, the common folk, the working masses, who migrated to the big city without a lot of occupational choices, nor a lot of education. But we were also the toughest crowd in America. We would verbally tussle with those speakers, argue, debate, and sometimes I've seen those speakers get pulled right off their stage, like the time when one of them wanted to insult the soldiers coming home from the war. One speaker in particular captivated everyone. They called him Harlem's own Socrates. He was brilliant, so scholarly, so informed, and he had a lot to say about capitalism, exploitation, and class. Even the press took notice.
This man was a walking encyclopedia. We had no idea one man could keep up an interesting talk on a great variety of subjects. He ought to be a lecturer in some great American university.
Some speakers were sensational and had their own controversy.
If you believe that the Negro has a soul, if you believe that the Negro is a man, if you believe the Negro was endowed with the senses commonly given to other men by the Creator, then you must acknowledge that what other men have done, Negroes can do. We want to build up cities, nations, governments, industries of our own in Africa, so that we'll be able to have a chance to rise from the lowest to the highest position.
And some speakers had us ready to join the unions. They were all about the workers. And the women, they didn't just listen. They climbed those ladders too, pushing for the vote, for fair wages, and for women's rights too.
Make a speech. I'd been speaking on the street ladders because none of the churches would let us in with our kind of talk. They didn't want to hear no freedom talk. Now, this wasn't nationalist talk, mind you. Well, but no church would have it. So we had to put up ladders and speak on the street corner. That's where I got my PhD, on the street corner, speaking, you see.
Man or woman, those speakers weren't admired by everyone. To some, they were a real threat, and the speakers weren't just preaching about change or evolution. They were talking unions, socialism, communism. You know, the kind of talk that made the government nervous. And during the war, the government cracked down on what they call so-called radical speech, or even Negro speech. They passed all kinds of laws to shut folks up. You couldn't speak up against the flag, the military, or the country without risking arrest or something worse. But in our community, staying quiet wasn't an option. And even after the war ended, they were still after us. Despite the cops always trying to break things up or beat somebody upside the head, the speakers feared that the real trouble was hidden somewhere in the crowds. Some of the Caribbean speakers got sent back home, and that kind of power the cops didn't have alone. Despite the harassment and watchful eyes over the years, Harlem street speakers didn't back down. No, they became bolder, louder, eccentric, more audacious, more polarized, and sometimes more divisive. They called out white store owners. They challenged the police. They challenged each other. And over the generations, the fire just kind of spread. The stages grew. No more crates, just raised voices echoing off of 125th and Lenox Avenue. But the message stayed the same, sharp and unflinching.
Anytime you live in the 20th century and you walking around here singing, "We shall overcome," the government has failed. This is part of what's wrong with you. You do too much singing. Today it's time to stop singing and start swinging.
Those young Harlem street boys and young men on the sidewalk just listening, whether they meant to or not, they absorbed the same defiance, that same pride, and black radicalism. Some of them would take up their pens and turn their corner talk into pages, spreading the message far beyond the block. And to the masses, the intersection of 135th Street or 125th Street and 7th Avenue no longer echo with the voices of the street professors, although crowds do gather on occasion. How does the influence and the spirit of radicalism, resistance, and pride permeate beyond that space? And how does it take on the next battle?
You will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out. You will not be able to lose yourself on Skag and skip out for beer during commercials because the revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by Xerox in 4 parts without...